The Ghostbusters series has its share of ups and downs. A failed reboot in 2016, a subpar sequel where actor Bill Murray claims he was sabotaged into making, and as I'm sure you know, there is a new Ghostbusters movie coming out, and despite all that has gone down over the past 30-some years, I'm very excited. Now, it has been a hot minute since I've sat down and watched these movies, so in order to prepare myself for the new film, I'm going to be watching every Ghostbusters movie, and for better or worse, the reboot from 2016, which for the context of this video is very unnecessary. Don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I should say I'm not a Ghostbusters expert. There's a lot of lore surrounding these, which I will be talking about some of that, but ultimately I just want to have some fun and go on a little nostalgic journey. So if you're into that, let's reminisce together. Let's go.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Like many other kids from the 80s and 90s, I watched this one a lot after I finally got a copy of it around age 12, but more on that later. And oddly enough, it was originally going to be a very different movie, set in the future where there was going to be multiple Ghostbusters groups all around the country. And it was going to star John Belushi, who unfortunately passed away long before the movie could be made. And when director Ivan Reitman approached writers Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, he suggested they scale it back to a story about a trio of college professors who got fired from a university and the Ghostbusters were born. Winston Zeddemore comes in later looking for a steady paycheck, who was originally supposed to be in the entire movie, but when actor Eddie Murphy backed out of the movie, pressure from the studio forced the character to be cut out of half the movie, giving Ernie Hudson the shaft. And to make matters worse, the studio cut him out of all promotional materials after the movie came out. But Winston fans rejoiced because in 1999, our guy was finally featured on the cover of the VHS and DVD release, only to be omitted on the second movie. What the fuck? Even Harold Ramis got the shaft, but like for the VHS release and any 4:3 aspect ratio release for that matter, he often got cut out of the wider shots.
What's interesting about this kind of shot is when the movie is panned and scanned for TV, I'm always cut out.
That's right. So be happy you bought a DVD.
You can see me in every shot.
So when I started watching this the other day, I was immediately reminded of something that I always thought when I was a child. Was I the only one who thought this guy was also played by Rick Moranis? Was he pulling double duty for this movie? You see the resemblance, right? No, this is Stephen Tash, who you may know from Christine and Beach Balls. I actually didn't know that wasn't him until I was an adult. But in all fairness, a deleted scene shows Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd playing two homeless dudes rambling incoherently walking through Central Park, which further convinced me that this was Rick Moranis. And I think that's fair because it wasn't unlike actors to play double duty for this movie. Say what you want, you can't shame me. I am unshameable. Nevertheless, watching this, I was transported back to my youth, and as I get older, growing closer and closer to that inevitable midlife crisis that's bound to happen in a few years. This comedy horror just feels like a nice, warm, cozy blanket. Re-experiencing the hotel scenes where the guys catch Slimer, the horrifying turn of events where Dana gets possessed by Zool and it turns into The Exorcist, the freaking Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Come on, let's freaking go. Also, am I the only one that thinks that this shot of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is just absolutely freaking terrifying? Just me? Okay. But yeah, like I said, it's been a hot minute since I've watched any of these. I have to say, I genuinely missed it. The witty and mostly improvised banter between the guys is just so organic and hilarious. The old school special effects hold up really well, you know, with a couple of exceptions with the terror dogs. I love it so much. I also have to point out just how overly happy this guy is to be watching this catastrophic storm forming above Spook Central. Me thinks you're a Gozer worshiper. So it goes without saying this movie is a solid 10 out of 10. Also, screw you, Mr. Pecker. And also, he's back in Frozen Empire. So, yay.
You worthless piece of slime!
So back when this movie came out, it was considered a flop. Well, I got a hot take for you. This is my favorite Ghostbusters movie. And I'll have you know, a few days ago when Rocky and I started watching this, she said, and I quote, "It's my favorite too." So there. So growing up, I had this VHS of movies recorded off of TV, and those movies were Masters of the Universe, The Wizard of Oz, and Ghostbusters 2. And Ghostbusters was cleverly marked the Vago movie. The Vago. It was my first Ghostbusters experience. I'd only seen the first one once in my young childhood, and that's it. So I wasn't too familiar with the first one until the 1999 release on VHS. Needless to say, I have a bit more to say about this one because of that. Also, I had to laugh because I just found out my oldest childhood friend has a Twitch. So one day I went into his chat to say, "Hey, it's been forever, blah, 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 blah." And the first thing he said to me was, "Yeah, I just remember when we were young, all you wanted to do was watch Ghostbusters 2. That's all he remembered, huh? Shout out Rivalry Night. Go check him out. Probably said his name wrong. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Why did this movie flop in 1989? Well, I read an article from People magazine called Bill Murray Says He Was Outfoxed into Making Ghostbusters 2 and Joined Under False Pretenses. This film is off to a great start. In the video companion piece that this article is based on, Bill Murray states that he was very reluctant to do a sequel that the studio was really pushing for.
The only reason anyone would want to do another one would be to make money.
Eventually, the studio got him and the gang all together for a meeting, and the studio pitched an idea for a sequel that intrigued Murray enough to come on board for the project. But when he showed up on set, it was a different screenplay and not what he had signed up for. So the studio is basically tricking the cast and director into making a subpar product, which is always a great formula for success. And to this day, I still don't know what the original story was in that screenplay that was presented to them. Was it a completely different story altogether? Or was it a less kid-friendly version of the Vigo story? I have no clue. Oh hey, me from the future. I just wanted to say this guy sucks, because about a year ago, Minty Comic Arts posted a great video about the Ghostbusters 2 unused scripts. It's a great video, you should go check it out. This dink didn't do very good research, did he? Bye. And as much as I love and adore this movie, even I feel how lackluster it is compared to the original. For starters, the first half is kind of Ghostbusters copy and paste edition. The guys are down on their luck, a scary thing happens, they catch the first ghost, and then immediately into a montage, and then the second one takes off in its own direction. For a little while. Then it's the Ghostbusters are imprisoned, a supporting character has red eyes, something larger than life roams the city streets, and then there's the end boss fight. And there's probably more, I'm just going off the top of my head. Now I do want to clarify that I'm not really complaining about these scenes, as some of them are definitely some of my favorite moments in the movie. I'm just criticizing the copycat structure of it. In ways it just feels like the studio is forcing them to make the same movie all over again. It made us a lot of money last time. Let's just make the same movie all over again. It worked last time, why wouldn't it work this time? And watching these back to back, I really felt how lackluster the end fight with Vigo is compared to the first movie. Like, it builds up to something that feels like such a grand threat when he possesses Ray, only to be dealt with in a matter of seconds. Such a missed opportunity. A lot more could have been done with that possession. Like, he gets loose and goes on a rampage around the city or something, you know, whatever, something. Despite all this, I still love the movie. I know we've already established that the end fight is very lackluster compared to Gozer, and that may seem like I find that character a lot less scary, but on the contrary, as a kid, being jump scared by the eye of the painting, violently shocking this dude just made me shit myself. And then a disembodied head comes floating out of the painting and speaking in a deep voice that was too much for my young, fragile mind to handle. This guy tormented my dreams for years to come. Oh, if only I'd seen this image of Willem von Homburg sweeping the floor behind the scenes, I would have been cured. Or this behind the scenes footage with the actor's real voice.
A mountain of skulls and the castle of pain I sit on a throne of blood.
Why didn't you all show me this sooner? I could have slept much easier back then. How dare you? I could have been terrified of Max von Sydow instead. That's right, to the disappointment of Mr. Homburg, all of Vigo's dialogue was redubbed by Max von Sydow, Father Merrin himself from The Exorcist. I just recently discovered that, and that's just too cool. I love The Exorcist. Rest in peace to these freaking legends. Also, can we talk about Peter MacNicol for a second? We gotta talk about Peter MacNicol, who later went on to play practically the same character in Dracula Dead and Loving It, an underrated masterpiece. I'm sure a lot of you found Janusz annoying and all that, and I think that's fair, but he's a highlight for me. This twit with a heavy accent just brings me joy every time I watch this. Yes, he's a creep with bad breath and about as smooth as a hedgehog with women, but give my guy a chance, ladies. One of my favorite moments from this movie is when Peter asks him,
"Where in the hell are you from, anyway?"
The Upper West Side?
It's so stupid. Also, how freaking horrifying is this shot of him as a ghost? Absolutely terrifying. Speaking of terrifying, that tunnel scene with all the disturbing floating heads. I was like 4 the first time I saw this. You trying to scar me for life? But yeah, so to rate this one, personally, there's 2 different ratings. One is looking at it very critically and objectively, which I'm giving it a 6.5. It's just not lightning in a jar like the first one, but I do love it so much, and a lot of that stems from being a staple from my childhood. So on that side of things, it's an easy 10 out of 10. So if we split the difference between the two, we come out with a score of 8.5. I think that's a good spot.
You know, there's a highly entertaining movie about a killer dog happening right over there.
So after years of playing will they, won't they make a third movie, after many years of articles headlining Bill Murray's reluctance, after an extremely unnecessary reboot, we finally got the third movie that every Ghostbusters fan wanted 32 years later. I don't know about you, but I had thrown in the towel and gave up on a third movie a long time ago, especially after that reboot came out. But But then a few years later, the true sequel was finally announced, and my totally optimistic self thought, why? But after a few COVID delays, I brought my pessimistic ass to that theater, and by the end of it, I was very moved. The credits started rolling and I cheered to Rocky. Yes, they didn't kill Ghostbusters! So the heaviest critique everybody was giving it was it relied too heavily on nostalgic servicing. But I think for a soft reboot like this, it actually worked very well. A brand new solid group of characters who are betrayed by the perfect actors for their parts is still going to be a pretty tough sell for those of us who love the originals so much. New characters? We don't care about them yet. So continuing the lore with the previous villain is going to keep us invested with something we're familiar with and curious to learn more about as we get used to these new characters. So really, they did it perfect. I don't know, well done, I say. I do get that some people thought the CGI Egon was a little disrespectful to Harold Ramis. I can see where they're coming from, but I disagree. It's towing a fine line, to be sure, but the way they did it here, I felt it to be a very heartfelt, genuine nod to Harold and the perfect send-off for the character. And now that I've grown to love the new characters, I'm excited to see what comes next for them. I know the original cast is gonna be in Frozen Empire, and I'm thrilled that they are, but I also feel like these new characters could legitimately hold their own and carry on a Ghostbusters movie by themselves, and have it be a great Ghostbusters movie. McKenna Grace and Paul Rudd are worth the price of admission alone. Like everyone, I would love to see Rick Moranis again. I don't think he will, but it'd be such a welcome addition. I do hope to see a grown-up Oscar someday. Hell, I want to see Janish again. Come on, guys, bring back the McNichol. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about it than that. 10 out of 10 for me, and I can't wait to see what they do next.
Hey, guess whose desk I just set on fire? You'll never guess.
So when I first set out to make this video, the first title that came to my mind was rewatching all of the Ghostbusters movies. And my original intent was just to cover the main storyline, but I did say every Ghostbusters movie. Either way, I reluctantly set out to watch this movie for the first time, but it was okay because Afterlife exists. This isn't going to ruin the series. It doesn't even take place in the same timeline, so you know, I'm alright with this. It's finally time. So I popped it in and dramatically lowered my expectations, and it wasn't quite the dumpster fire I was expecting. Having said that, does anybody want this? I did have fun with a lot of stuff in this, like all the different gadgets that Jillian comes up with. That stuff was a lot of fun. And I guess a lot of people hated the villain. I don't know. I thought he was all right. I read that basically at the end they just fight a giant Ghostbusters logo, which is true. But reading that, I was under the impression that it was literally, you know, the logo floating in midair like this. So being under the wrong impression all this time, it ended up dramatically exceeding my expectations. And I also really love Kate McKinnon in this. Watching her, all I could think about was Tank Girl, which I love that movie and that character. And her end credits scene with Sigourney Weaver was just, I loved that. So she was cool as sort of the Egon of the group. But my biggest gripes with this movie is everything is so over the top and awkward. Let's use an example. Let's take The Dark Knight. This represents the first two movies. And the Ghostbusters reboot, Batman and Robin. Everything about this movie tries way too hard to be funny, and all the characters feel like they're from Edward Scissorhands or something. There are plenty of moments in the original movies and Afterlife that genuinely feel like they're facing real life and death situations, and they drop the comedy and get to work. And if there is comedy in scenes like that, it feels organic. That's a big part of what makes the original movies work so well, and this reboot does not have that balance. Also, look at this scene where Chris Hemsworth is possessed by the villain and freaking dancing away, mind controlling the SWAT team. What the hell is that?
Come on, dude, this is butt.
You think Vigo or Gozer would be caught doing that? No. They'd be out taking over the world, not busted moves at the freaking Roxbury. Granted, I did watch the extended cut. Maybe that wasn't a thing in the theatrical. I didn't care to check. And yes, I agree, they made Kevin way too dumb.
Can I ask why no glass?
Oh, they just kept getting dirty, so I took them out.
Now, dumb characters can be funny, don't get me wrong. Look at Dumb and Dumber. Hilarious. But Kevin is more like Kelly Bundy from Married with Children. When that show started, she had just the right amount of dumb, mixed with street smarts and sarcasm. But later in the series, she just became so dumb that it just became annoying. And that's how I feel about Kevin. He's hired on as a receptionist for no other reason than to be eye candy for the gals.
You know, are you seeing anyone right now?
Hilarious. Yeah, 3 out of 10. We're done here. All right, nobody's gonna care about this next section, and for those people, the video is basically over. Like and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. But for those who want to stick around, I want to talk about red eyes in these movies. So back when I started this channel, I made a short video called Red Eyes in Movies and TV, a Childhood Trauma. And in that video, I talk about Ghostbusters 2 and how scenes with red eyes gave me nightmares as a young kid, and I still find them unsettling. So let's have a little fun and rank all the scenes with red eyes from least terrifying to most terrifying, at least in my opinion. Let's just get the whole reboot out of the way. None of the ghosts with the red eyes got to me at all. I gotta get the shivers at the very least, and that it didn't happen here. And also the terror dogs were kind of in the same lane for me. Like, the eyes make sense for them, and it usually only gets to me if it's like a person or something with them. All right, let's start for real. Number 5, Are You a God? Ghost's Arrival could have ranked higher for me, but that one time when I saw it as a young kid, I don't know if the TV was too dark or what, but I couldn't actually tell for sure if she had red eyes. And later on in life, when I finally got the movie for myself and confirmed it, I was old enough to where it didn't really bother me. So number 4, There Is No Callie, Only Zool. During my first watch in the theaters around the halfway mark, I started anticipating a moment like this. Callie gets possessed by Zool and the kids come home and find her sitting facing the other way in a chair. And when that moment hit, I knew it was coming, and it gave me the chills when she turned to face them. And it also keeps this little tradition alive. Like, there's a scene in almost every Ghostbusters movie where 3/4 of the way through, a supporting character has glowing red eyes. I call it the obligatory red eye scene in the Ghostbusters movie 3/4 of the way through. Tradition. Yeah, let's just call it the 3/4 rule for the rest of the video. Number 3, What an Ass. So this is where Lewis is in Columbus Circle and asks the horse if he's the gatekeeper and growls at the carriage driver, eyes aglow. And this is where the first movie abides by the 3/4 rule. And as a kid, I did not like that he did that. I didn't. Number 2, Granny Poha. Abiding once again by the 3/4 rule. This is where Janosch, disguised as an old lady, grabs Oscar off the ledge of Venkman's apartment building. This one really got to me. The music playing during this is eerie as hell. Pair that with this terrifying image. This scene gave me terrible nightmares as a kid. Number 1, A Bad Monkey. Yeah, the scene where Vigo possesses Ray gave me nightmares for more reasons than the red eyes, man. Yeah, I don't even need to explain this one. So yeah, red eyes are scary as hell, and you cannot shame me. They're terrifying, okay? They are. Stupid way to end the video. All right, that's all I got for you. Thanks so much for watching. Cannot wait to see Frozen Empire in a few days. So while we all wait for the new movie, I don't know, check out another video. I've made others. Like and subscribe if you're into that, and I'll see you in the next video. My girlfriend brought 2 2-foot long pixie sticks. Didn't know that existed until now, but here we are.